We are talking about a major casting shakeup, a violent confrontation that no one saw coming, and a twist regarding a certain gothic castle that will leave you completely speechless. I have been warning you guys for weeks that Rick was a ticking time bomb, but even I could not have predicted the sheer brutality of what is about to unfold on our screens. Grab your tissues, because this upcoming storyline is going to shatter hearts, ruin lives, and change the landscape of the show forever. Right now, the tension on the show is thick enough to cut with a knife. We have all been watching Elizabeth and Dante grow closer by the minute. Ever since Dante confided his massive, career-ending secret to Elizabeth about tampering with evidence to protect Rocco, their bond has shifted from casual friends to something deeply intimate and profoundly trusting. Elizabeth has become his safe harbor in a storm of mob violence and police corruption, but lurking in the shadows, watching their every lingering glance and soft touch, is Rick. His jealousy has been simmering, bubbling just beneath the surface, turning him into a paranoid, possessive mess. He has been pacing the floors, obsessing over the fact that he is losing the woman of his dreams to a man he has always secretly despised. If you ask me, Rick has never truly dealt with his deep-seated insecurities. For decades, we have watched him play second fiddle, always feeling like the outcast, always desperate for love and validation, especially when compared to Sonny. Now, seeing Elizabeth slip through his fingers and gravitate toward Dante has pushed him right to the edge of sanity. According to this massive insider leak, Rick is not just going to confront them with harsh words or legal threats. No, ladies, the leaked script reveals that Rick is going to completely snap. I am talking about a total psychotic break from reality. He's going to catch Elizabeth and Dante sharing a tender, private moment, perhaps a comforting hug or a near kiss, and it will be the spark that ignites a catastrophic powder keg. The upcoming episodes will feature a scene so violent and shocking that it might just rival some of the darkest moments in the show's history. Instead of yelling, Rick is going to launch a physical assault on Dante. And I do not mean a simple punch or a brief scuffle. Rick is going to unleash a relentless, savage beating, and Dante, completely taken off guard and perhaps unwilling to brutally fight back in front of Elizabeth, will be overwhelmed by Rick's sheer, unadulterated rage. The leaked script details Rick pummeling Dante until the detective is battered, bruised, and ultimately beaten into unconsciousness. Rick is going to leave Dante lying motionless in a pool of his own blood. It is a horrifying escalation that proves Rick has completely lost his mind and any shred of humanity he had left. Let us take a moment to really unpack the tragic history between Elizabeth and Rick. If you have been watching this show for as long as I have, you know that Elizabeth has given Rick more second chances than anyone else ever would. She has always tried to see the good in him, always tried to believe that his love for her could overcome his darker, more manipulative instincts. But this is the ultimate betrayal of that trust. By viciously attacking Dante, a man she deeply cares for and respects, Rick has not just broken the law, he has completely shattered the fragile foundation of every memory they ever shared. Elizabeth will look at the blood on her hands and realize that the man she once loved is entirely gone, replaced by a violent monster. The psychological damage this will inflict on her is going to be a major focal point in the upcoming episodes, and I am hearing whispers that her performance will absolutely gut you. Can you even imagine the sheer terror Elizabeth is going to experience? I can already picture her piercing screams echoing through the scene. She will be frantically trying to pull Rick off Dante, begging and pleading for him to stop, but Rick will be deaf to her cries, completely consumed by his jealous frenzy. When Dante finally collapses, unresponsive and bleeding heavily, Elizabeth is going to drop to her knees beside him in absolute panic. She will be the one to desperately dial the police and scream for paramedics, her hands covered in Dante's blood. This trauma is going to haunt Elizabeth for a very long time, and if you ask me, this is the final, definitive nail in the coffin for any chance Rick ever had with her. She will never, ever forgive him for this monstrous act. The most chilling part of this leaked script? Rick's reaction immediately after the beating. While Elizabeth is sobbing and performing emergency first aid on Dante, Rick is reportedly just going to stand there, staring at his bloody knuckles with a blank, detached expression. He will not run. He will not try to hide. The insider leak suggests that Rick will be in such a state of shock and denial that he will not even comprehend the massive severity of what he has just done. He genuinely believes he is the victim in this love triangle, and his twisted mind has justified this brutal violence as a way of protecting what belongs to him. It is sick, it is twisted, and it is going to cost him his freedom for the rest of his natural life. When the police arrive on the scene, the chaos will be off the charts. Imagine the look on the officers' faces when they see their beloved former chief, Dante, lying near death on the ground, and a high-profile lawyer like Rick standing over him, covered in evidence. The arrest is going to be swift and dramatic. Rick will be shoved against a wall, handcuffed, and read his rights while he is still in a daze. The irony is just delicious, is it not? The brilliant attorney who has spent his life manipulating the law is now going to be the one locked behind bars, facing charges that could range from aggravated assault to attempted murder. Dante's life will be hanging by a thread, and Rick's fate will be sealed in a cold steel cell. Let us talk about Dante for a second, because my heart is absolutely breaking for him. He is going to be rushed to the hospital in critical condition. We are going to see scenes of Elizabeth pacing the waiting room, covered in blood, praying for a miracle. The medical team will have to work around the clock to save him. This violent attack will not only jeopardize Dante's life, but also threaten to expose the massive secret he has been keeping about Rocco. If Dante is in a coma, who is going to protect Rocco? Who is going to keep the truth from coming out? Rick's jealous rage is going to have a massive ripple effect that touches every single family in town, leaving devastation in its wake. But hold on to your hats, ladies, because here is the absolute climax of this leaked information, and it is a doozy. Where do you think they are going to lock Rick up? The local lockup? Think again. The upcoming episodes are setting up a massive location shift that is going to blow your mind. According to my trusted insider leak, Wyndemere is officially being converted into a high-security holding facility. Yes, you heard me right. The creepy, gothic island estate is being repurposed by the authorities to hold the most dangerous and high-profile prisoners in town. It is a brilliant, terrifying twist that nobody saw coming. And can we just talk about the incredible aesthetic of using Wyndemere as a prison? The writers are leaning heavily into the gothic, chilling atmosphere of the island. Imagine the cold, damp stone walls, the echoing hallways, and the absolute isolation from the rest of the town. It is the perfect backdrop for psychological warfare. The leaked script describes the makeshift cells being constructed in the old dungeons and grand halls, creating a stark contrast between the island's wealthy history and its grim new reality. For a man like Rick, who is used to luxury apartments and expensive scotch, being thrown into a damp, echoing stone cell is going to be a severe shock to the system. The atmospheric tension alone is going to make these Sweeps Week episodes mandatory viewing. Think about who is already there. Jens, the ruthless mercenary who just terrorized the entire town, is currently being held in a fortified cell at Wyndemere. And the leaks indicate that Curtis, who is currently fighting for his life in court during his trial, is also going to be transferred to this island fortress. If Curtis is found guilty, or even if he is just held without bail during a lengthy appeal process, he is heading straight to the island. And now, with Rick facing decades in prison for the brutal attempted murder of a police officer, he is going to be the newest resident of the island prison block. The roster of inmates is growing, and it is a roster of absolute heavyweights. If you ask me, the writers are setting up an absolute powder keg for Sweeps Week. Imagine the dynamics inside the walls of Wyndemere. You have Jens, a chaotic villain who thrives on manipulation and violence. You have Curtis, a desperate father who has been falsely accused and is fighting to get back to his newborn son. And now you add Rick, a disgraced, manipulative lawyer who is slowly losing his grip on reality. Putting these three volatile men in the same isolated location is a recipe for absolute disaster. It is going to be the most dangerous, terrifying place in town, a pressure cooker just waiting to explode. What happens when Rick realizes he is trapped on an island with men who would not hesitate to end his life? Will Rick try to use his legal knowledge to manipulate Jens? Will Curtis and Rick clash over their past histories and conflicting morals? The potential for a massive prison riot, a hostage situation, or a deadly escape attempt is through the roof. The island has always been a place of dark secrets and sinister plots, but turning it into a makeshift maximum security prison is a stroke of genius by the writers. It isolates the characters, ramps up the tension, and guarantees that every single scene set on the island will keep us completely glued to our screens. The sheer claustrophobia of having these specific men locked together is going to create television gold. Rick has always relied on his words, his suits, and his legal maneuvering to get out of trouble. But on that island, surrounded by a hardened mercenary like Jens and a physically imposing, desperate man like Curtis, Rick's legal jargon will mean absolutely nothing. He is going to be stripped of his power, forced to survive in an environment where brute strength and ruthless cunning are the only currency. I predict we are going to see a side of Rick that is darker and more desperate than anything we have ever witnessed before, as he desperately tries to claw his way back to civilization. I am utterly speechless at the sheer scale of this upcoming storyline. The writers are not holding back, and nobody is safe. Dante is fighting for his life in a hospital bed, Elizabeth is traumatized beyond belief, and Rick is about to enter a nightmare of his own making on a secluded, gothic island. So, I have to ask you guys, do you think Dante will survive this brutal attack? Or is this the end of the line for him? Will Rick end up making a deadly deal with Jens inside the walls of Wyndemere to secure his freedom? And how long until all hell breaks loose on that island and someone else gets killed? Drop your thoughts, your theories, and your outrage in the comments below, because I need to know I am not the only one losing my mind over this massive leak.